I'm Chris from Airwindows, and hey, you can do this. Because this is LRConvolve2. Now, under normal circumstances, I would give you an amazing plugin that people actually want. But if you're following the channel, hey, like and subscribe, all of those things, you would notice that I just posted a really long video with lots of those little annotations in it about the fact that Yale Text is now made available, the design for my Console X control surface thing there, and also another one that I designed that's Console X Mini. It doesn't have the faders, but it has a knob for using one fader at a time, and it's considerably cheaper in a smaller box. And that turned out to be a whole bunch of work, and I'm repeatedly shoveling myself out from snowstorms and all that kind of stuff. So we're doing a bit of a follow-up today, and I'll show you what that means. Again, here is LRConvolve, and the normal thing I'm demonstrating it with is the famous Swedish F sound. It's horrible, but it's a convolved sound, because it is a loud, angry vocal combined with a sine wave.
To downright spite.
But I bet you didn't know that it could do this. Because this one, rather than just being the first algorithm I came up with, and that's still available, you can still have that, has that Soar control that I discovered working on the SquareRoot plugin, which is also fairly recent. So what this one does is it convolves the left channel with the right channel, just as before. But this time, the SquareRoot function that it uses has the Soar control built into it. What that means is the original behavior is full crank, all the way up. But then, as we turn it down, we start getting into a more linear zone, because the way that this particular function works is I had to come up with the hack to make the sort of crossing through the center place of the waveform work more smoothly. Because what it tended to do is distort it like crazy. There would be a steeper part right as you went through zero, and that would produce a really strong, loud effect, but at the same time, it would be a nasty distortion. And all of that is available in the SquareRoot plugin for use as a distortion. But this is using that same function, the SquareRoot function, as a way of making the convolution a little bit fuller and more dense. So as we turn it up, it gets a little fuller. So you can kind of work out how much of the body of the sound you want to come out and how much crazy hype around the middle of the waveform you want to bring out. It's like a weird little parallel compression or something, except for that it's purely saturation. There are no time constants in it at all. But now watch this. This is the drums thing I was showing you, because it's drums and a guitar. Watch what happens when I turn Soar down, because this sound has a lot more quiet stuff in the middle rather than having a full crank sine wave going all the time. Remember, the loudness of the sound is a combination of having both of the channels making a noise. If either of the channels are quiet, the output's going to be quiet. You get this. Isn't that interesting? It like gates the thing out completely. So this is what lies inside the SquareRoot plugin. If you use the SquareRoot plugin and the Soar control, this is what the function is inherently doing. We're just exaggerating it a lot because the way that it's working, if you have very quiet sounds, it's going to force all of the sound to be as quiet as either of the sounds. Anyway, watch what happens as I start turning it up. Now we've got a sort of gated sound. Now it's a little fuller. It's starting to sound almost like a normal thing. And of course we can crank it all the way up. And you hear a sort of reverby quality from the very center of the waveform being cranked way out. So basically what we have is these variations on the amount of sustain and ambience around that drum sound, seeing as it's being combined with a guitar sound that has nothing to do with it. And then over here, oh wait, I forgot that I had that in there. Yeah, I didn't know what that noise was. So check this out. The bit in this other section that you didn't hear as being any different is a continuous sound, but the sound is a continuous race car sound. And if you have it set to LRConvolve2, we get to modulate the amount of Soar in there. And we pretty much hear, as it builds up, the sound of the drums, because it's a continuing sound. So only the drums are causing dynamic variations. Then as we bring Soar into the picture, we start to hear the ambience around things. And the fact that it's a really loud race car noise is letting the full dynamics of the drums come through pretty much unmodulated. But they are having the sound of a race car going by on a straight of probably the Circuit de la Sarthe. You can just kind of hear what it does, because the underlying sound making that drum sound have that tonality is this. So yeah, just another day in the Airwindows shop, fooling around with and doing stuff. I do have one more LRConvolve idea to do, and that's one where I can take advantage of these very example sounds, the drums thing that I'm doing against guitar. And I wanted to come up with a way of being able to do this convolution where you'd have most of the color of one sound and they wouldn't interfere with each other quite so hardcore. And I think it worked, but I will most likely be giving you a more interesting plugin next week, because I can't just do the random weird experiments every week. I have to come up with some things that are actually exciting and musically useful to use. But yeah, if you would be interested in seeing me think about the possibilities of using the Airwindows Console X controller that I got from Yaletex, and some of the ideas around, at one point during talking about this controller, I was figuring out what the possibilities were of having all the faders still doing Airwindowmation. And I have an update on Airwindowmation as well, where you can duplicate a track in any color coding pretty much as many times as you want, and it'll still sit at about the right fader level. But that, I talk about that in the other video. And I was considering ideas of what if you, instead of using those joysticks for the parametric EQs, or scrambling around the EQs, so like the frequency was the little dial knob in the middle, and then that would make, or you could assign the joysticks to be boost and cut and width of the boost or cut. But then you could also just be working with a particular kind of synthesizer and use all of the joysticks to control like drone synths or something, and be running a giant ambient track with all this crazy drone stuff. And then when you needed to go and change the sound of one of the drones, you'd be doing it with these 4 joysticks all at once. And that could be great fun. But then again, you could also go and talk to Yale techs and get a control surface that's nothing but joysticks, if you pleased. I like my 4 joystick design because I get to treat it as an unorthodox mixing board, but it's also capable of being used for all that weird stuff. But that's another story, because I just supply the free software that you can use things like this with. And you don't actually have to go to Yale techs for stuff. I always point out I do have an itty-bitty thing. This will even do the Airwindowmation stuff if you know how to set it up that way. And it's all just interesting stuff, hopefully some form of distraction, and ways of coming up with doing something nice or doing something weird or just continuing to do something. On that note, I will talk to y'all later because I'm going to go back to doing something. Bye-bye.